Hello and welcome to the Discover History YouTube channel, and today you've got me and I'm going to be talking about soap, which is not only topical, it's also a very interesting topic when it comes to history. Now, if anyone listens to BBC Hereford in Worcester Radio, I was on the radio recently and we gave a very small timeline, a very small snippet of soap and the history of it. And this video is designed to give you a bit more information than what we could cover on the radio. And it is quite an interesting topic because they're saying now that we have to wash our hands in hot soapy water for at least 20 seconds, making sure that the thumbs are washed individually, between the fingers, so important, and also the tips of our fingers. 20 seconds, we have to spend 20 seconds washing our hands. So it's probably made you think, who were the first people to have soap? Well, we know that soap gets a mention back in ancient Babylon to at least 2800 BC, so soap has been around for a very long time. The only problem is most soap, hard blocks of soap, was really used for washing laundry, shall we say, for a very long time. If we go back to ancient times, way back to Babylon or even ancient Egypt, ancient Greece or even ancient Rome, most people actually used olive oil. This is actually a replica olive oil container. So you would have this in your bathhouse and you would pour the olive oil onto your hands, cover your body completely in it, and then scrape off the oil using a strigil or a striegel. And this was very important because this doesn't just moisturize the body, it removes all the dead skin cells. So technically, washing and soap has been around for a very long time. Now, proper bars of soap that we think of for washing ourselves with, not laundry but washing ourselves with, does actually get a mention by Pliny the Elder. Pliny the Elder, way back in ancient Rome, does actually mention the use of hard soap. He actually mentions that the Gauls are using this, and the Gauls, if you don't know, were the people of France, so they were actually washing with a soap like this one. This is actually made predominantly out of animal fat, so it has quite a distinct smell to it. The Romans didn't like it. They preferred to use the oils, the olive oil, just like the Egyptians and so on. But a bar of soap not being used for clothing in laundry but for the bodies was used by the Gauls way back in ancient times. Now, when we look at what makes up soap, it's quite interesting because it's predominantly fat and we also need an alkali. And the alkali is usually where you've taken wood ash, steeped it in water, and then you take the water off, and it's the water mixed with animal fat that actually makes the soap, and it creates the lather that we use even today to wash our hands with. Luckily, they don't use animal fat today, and I don't even think they use wood ash either. But going back to ancient times, that is the first proper bar of soap used by the ancient Gauls. Now, we're going to cover the history of soap in probably about 20 minutes. There is an historical side to it, which I've just mentioned. The first soap gets a mention back in Babylon in 2800 BC. We also get the Gauls using soap. However, there is also a legend about soap, and it comes from ancient Rome. And they say there is a mount inside Rome known as Mount Sapo. And it was said that's where they used to sacrifice animals. And when they sacrificed the animals, it was said the animals were thrown into a fire. And they used to say the people that washed in the river Tiber used to find after heavy rain the fat from the sacrifices along with the ash mixed into the river Tiber allow people to have cleaner clothes and even cleaner bodies. However, that is purely a legend. Most people say that's why we use the word soap. Sapo, Mount Sapo in Rome. Interesting fact, no one's ever found Mount Sapo in Rome, so we think it's more of a legend. We're pretty much 99% sure it is a legend. So soap's been around for a very long time, but when did it actually appear in Britain? Well, in Britain we don't really get soap until about the 10th century, 10th and 11th century. So we're not washing, but we're not washing with soap. Most people say our medieval ancestors, when they had, for example, dirt on them, even sewage, there was a lot of it around, probably just wiped their hands in the dew and that cleaned their hands off. Other than that, they went to the lake, the stream, the river, and just washed the dirt off the surface. However, we know that when we have the Crusades, it was the crusading knights that often brought back soap from abroad. And this is actually something known as Aleppo soap, and it's quite green in colour. And it's a fine, quite soft soap that came from way over in the land of the Crusades, Aleppo, which is still there today. And slowly soldiers brought this back with them, knights brought it back with them, and people got to like it. Not so much the common man, but more the knights, the barons, the nobility as such. When we get to the height of the medieval period, we also get this fine soap being brought over here, and this is made with olive oil, very similar to the olive oil that the Romans were washing in. And this is actually Castile soap, the finest soap you could get, to the point that only the monarch really could use it. A pure white, quite nice smelling soap. Now this soap was heavily taxed, and sadly from the medieval period onwards, soap was heavily taxed just to keep it in the hands of those in the upper classes. Now soap making is quite interesting. As I said, you need the fat, you also need the alkali, and it's quite a smelly business. If you remember back to the soap that I showed you earlier, the soap that came from ancient Gaul, it has a distinct smell and it's got a lot of animal fat in it. And in the medieval period, anyone making soap was usually pushed to the peripherals of a town. The reason being is it stinks. You have to boil the fat, render it down, and the sad thing is they were out there making soap for the upper classes next to the tanneries and the people that deal with sewage. It's a stinky old business really. Medieval people, however, the common man would have wiped their hands in the dew. As I said earlier, it was the upper classes that were using that fine soap that the Crusaders originally brought over here. It's not until the 18th century when more people are using soap, and this is actually an 18th century soap holder, and more people are using soap than ever before, but once again it's a rich person's thing. Now in 1791 we do get a man called Leblanc, and he actually comes up with a new way of manufacturing soap which actually makes it slightly cheaper, which once again means more and more people are using it. Now soap carries on being a very important commodity, a luxury, for a very long time, way into the early 19th century, and it's not until the 1850s, 1853 in fact, that soap tax is completely removed, which now means it's more common for everyone to start using soap, and soap becomes very important. We get laundry soaps, we also get toilet soap, or body soap as such really. We've got a few here. Sunlight soap, I'm sure there's people out there that can remember Sunlight soap. We've also got some Lifebuoy. There we go, some very bright pink Lifebuoy, which does actually have carbolic acid mixed into it. It's got a very distinct smell. People like Galen, way back in Roman times, actually said washing hands was important before surgery. Sadly, it wasn't only until really people like Florence Nightingale that said washing hands for surgeons was important again. So we do lose a lot of these little remedies for stopping killing people. Wash your hands as such. Another common one which I remember is Pears as well, who actually brought out a transparent soap, and I'm sure there are many other soaps that you can think of whilst you sat there. Now most people today in 2020 are probably not using bars of soap. Some people actually think bars of soap are quite horrible because you're washing the dirt off and then it sits on the side for a very long period of time until you wash your hands again. And we often today use liquid soap. And the interesting thing about this, it was William Shepherd way back in 1865 that came up with liquid soap. So it's not actually a new thing. By the Victorian period, however, as you're probably aware, people used to say cleanliness is next to godliness. and that was so important, and more people wash. Right up to the Edwardian, right up to the modern day, we have been washing our hands. So I think soap has a very interesting history. It goes back a long way. It only came to Britain with the Crusading Knights, really, the finest soap, Aleppo, or later on Castile soap, and today we do take it for granted. Now, way back in end of February, early March, when COVID-19 started to rear its ugly head, we suddenly started to realise the importance of soap, and even I found out that people were panic buying soap, and it's quite sad, really. Now, I have enough soap in the household, so hopefully I can keep hold of my historical soap so I can do talks in the future. But soap is an important thing, and all I need to tell you is to make sure you wash your hands 20 seconds each time, making sure you get the whole of the hand completely washed. It is so important. If I was a knight going into battle, I would have to think against COVID-19, washing your hands is your best form of armour. Anyway, we're on Good Friday. Tomorrow, Saturday, we're going to give you some suggestions, some things to look out for Sunday, because Sunday is a craft day. So Saturday, look out for the video. We're going to tell you the things that you need to collate for the craft on Sunday. So make sure you stay in, wash your hands, stay safe, and see you soon. Bye bye.